Good to be here with everyone. My name is Brent Thill. I'm an equities research analyst at Jefferies, covering cloud and internet stories. With me is the CEO of Vimeo, Anjali Sud. Become the CEO in 2017 at the age of 34. Is responsible for transforming Vimeo from an entertainment destination to a powerhouse in video, covering every size of business with over 230 million end users. In the past 18 months, video usage has grown exponentially in the face of COVID, and the market continues to see an elevated demand for all things video. I would highlight downloading Vimeo Create. It's an unbelievable experience that I'm driving all my family videos on.
I did not pay him to say that.
That was my own plug. Thanks for joining everyone today. Maybe just to dive in, Anjali, there's some of the audience that hear Vimeo and think indie YouTube, the platform for creators, but you and the team have made it clear Vimeo is not that. So what is Vimeo in 2021?
Yeah, we are no longer the indie ad-free version of YouTube. For the last 4 years, we've really pivoted and been focused on a different strategy, which is being the professional video software solution for every business in the world. And by that, I mean, if you think about the power of professional quality video, why aren't we using it every day at work? Why isn't every business and marketer posting every post on social media using video? Why isn't your website full of customer testimonials and product demos and support help articles that are video-based? Why aren't we sending asynchronous video messages instead of scheduling that meeting, or doing creative brainstorming using video? And for the most part, the reason is just that it's been too hard. It's been too complex, too time-consuming, too intimidating, and the ecosystem was never designed to help every employee in the world be a content creator. And ultimately, that is what we at Vimeo are trying to do. We're trying to bring the power of professional quality video to every employee and every team. And we're doing that by building a solution that helps you create content, collaborate, and share that content, and connect with your audience securely, all in a really simple, intuitive, accessible solution. And it's been a really incredible journey. I know many folks here are probably in the earlier stages of building your software startup. But for Vimeo, we're a 16-year-old platform, but I think of us as a few-year-old enterprise software startup, because in many ways, the challenges that we've been facing have been really similar. How do you launch whole new products and solutions to go after a market? How do you get product market fit? How do you scale? How do you focus and prioritize when you have lots of different users to serve? How do you monetize? These are all the things that we have also been challenged by, and so I'm excited to kind of share more about what we've learned with you all today.
Let's dig into the moment in 2017. You became the CEO. You moved forward in transforming the company from a product strategy, within a product strategy, while not being a coder or engineer. Under your stewardship, Vimeo took a hard left from becoming a consumer entertainment destination to pursue a B2B video solution offering. What were the signals that this was a good idea?
It's funny because we sit here today and it seems really obvious that, of course, companies are going to use video to communicate with their distributed teams. But back in 2017, it was really not obvious. And the things that we saw that gave me and the team a lot of conviction were, we were a pretty massive platform even back then. And if you looked at the users coming to the platform organically, we just noticed a pattern. More and more, they weren't just creative professionals, agencies and filmmakers, or consumers. We were seeing more and more small businesses and marketers coming to the platform. And the types of video content that we were seeing uploaded was getting shorter and shorter. So no longer like feature film length documentaries, and more, the video for Facebook or for your website. So we were seeing that sort of naturally happen within the platform. And then you started to talk to customers. And I remember for me, the reason I was ready to bet my career on this strategy, having not been a product or technology background, was because whenever I went to conferences like this and I talked to potential customers at the booth, what I heard over and over again was video is more engaging. It's a really powerful medium for me to connect with my customers and grow my business, but it's just really hard, and so I'm not using it. And so there was sort of this thesis that developed that, well, the same way that email and text and image is used today, video can be done the same way. And I remember another really interesting signal was in the area of live streaming. So at the time, Vimeo didn't provide a live streaming capability, but it was one of the most top requested features among our users. And we looked at a company called Livestream, a startup called Livestream that we ultimately ended up acquiring and integrating into our platform. And they were seeing a lot of the events that they were powering had previously all been for entertainment, like concerts and performing arts. And slowly they were seeing the same trend. More and more people using video to live stream meetups and smaller gatherings and events, and even things like internal gatherings like town halls. And so you're just starting to see these signals that businesses were looking to use video. It wasn't happening at scale because it was too hard, but there was a real desire. And ultimately, it was those signals that led Vimeo to double down on the strategy. And what's really interesting is for a couple of years there, the demand didn't come. I remember so many times the conversation we would have with a large company would be, hey, why don't you use video and live stream your town hall, or have your marketing team hosting all their video content? And the answer was often, of course, we definitely want to do that, but that's part of our 5-year digital transformation roadmap, right? And so it was sort of okay, we have to really convince people on the power of video. And the pandemic changed that. It changed it overnight. And suddenly, all of these companies were forced to adapt to video, and now are starting to be really intentional and proactive about how they're going to invest and use video in the future. And so in many ways, I think we ended up having the right product and the right strategy right at sort of this moment when the market kind of accelerated. And it was always going to get there, but I think it accelerated, and I think we're seeing a permanent change in behavior that's pretty exciting.
Since taking over in 2017, you look forward, look backwards from here to then. What would you say in terms of lessons that you've learned, things that you'd like to maybe do differently?
Lots of mistakes made and lessons learned for sure, and also some things I think we did well. I'd say when you're pivoting a strategy, everyone says this, it seems obvious, but once you have conviction, you got to go all in, and you got to rip off that Band-Aid, and you got to make change fast. And I mean, I remember, I think it was about a week between when I was offered the CEO role and when I stood up in front of the company with the new vision, mission, strategy, plan. Everyone, here's your new job and area of focus. And even then, I look back and I'm like, oh, I wish we'd moved faster in so many ways. So I think once you have conviction that you need to change, just don't underestimate how hard it is, how much time it takes, and how much inertia you have to fight against. And for Vimeo, we'd been around for a long time, so there was the technology and the product, there was the brand equity of what people thought of us as, and then there was the culture and the DNA. And that's the other lesson, I would say. For anyone here who's kind of thinking about going more upmarket towards the enterprise, we didn't have a salesperson a couple years ago. And today, it's 25% of our revenue comes from the enterprise, and it's our fastest growing area. And for any product-driven company, the DNA, your team, you and your team have to wake up every day with deep empathy and passion for serving customers in the enterprise. And that's hard. It's hard to change that at a company at scale. And so I think that was a really, kind of important milestone for us as a company, and something we had to work really hard at. And then the last thing I'll say is power of focus. If you're in software and you're in any area that's like video, opportunity is everywhere. It's an incredible privilege. It's also a dangerous distraction because there's sort of the shiny object syndrome. You can do this, and you can do this, and you can do this. And I think for us, I've definitely learned some important lessons about when you take a group of people and you give them one simple goal and you put everyone towards that goal, it is incredible what that group can accomplish. And it's really hard to do when you're navigating an industry that's competitive, where speed to market matters, and there's lots of players. So I don't know that we've perfectly nailed it, Brent, but for me now, I think that's an area I'm focused on, which is how do I create that focus for the team so that we can be truly exceptional at the things that we need to be exceptional at. And then, of course, still being open and flexible and opportunistic about the rest. And that balance is a hard one to strike. But I think for anybody running a company in software, that's the key to success.
On your recent earnings call, you said the path to success will not be a straight line, something that many founders and companies in the audience can relate with. Maybe just walk through a little bit of some of the setbacks in the last 12 to 24 months and how you managed to go through them.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the mantra that I use a lot is that we need to have patience on vision, but impatience on execution. And by that I mean, we have a vision to provide professional quality video to every business in the world, and you can't waver from that. If you're too hedgy around your vision, you will never ever, these are hard problems to solve, it's not a straight line, so you will never actually commit enough to solve them. That being said, nobody ever nails product market fit out of the gate, or if you do, you are in a rare group. And you've got to be flexible, and you have to quickly adapt on the execution with urgency when things don't go your way. And I think we've definitely seen that. A good example is when the pandemic hit, we were actually prioritizing a very different set of features and products in our roadmap because we hadn't seen the demand from the enterprise be as visceral. And overnight, it changed. And that did mean that our roadmap had to change. We had to reallocate a lot of our R&D team to different projects. The way we thought about product market fit, pricing and packaging, monetizing our capabilities versus offering things for free, all had to shift. And it was necessary, and it was good that we did it quickly. But that was hard. You set the course for a year, you all have your OKRs, you're ready to go, and then the world changes. So I think, the hard part is just figuring out where to be nimble and where to not be dogmatic versus the places to say, I'm not going to get this right out of the gate. We have to keep trying, and I'm going to fail 4 or 5 times before we really succeed. And I'll give you, in Vimeo's case, probably the classic example for us is we believe that in order to put video in the hands of every business in the world, we have to make content creation really easy and frictionless. And that means we have to take whole capabilities that we could charge for today, that other companies are charging for and building whole businesses around, and we're going to offer them for free. And we're just going to make them available, and because we want to lower the barriers and make video creation really accessible. That's a hard thing to do, right? It's a hard thing to do, especially when you're a public company and you have numbers you represent to the street, and it's a hard thing to do. But it's also, that's an area where we have patience. We believe that that's going to be the right way to open up the market. And even if we don't get it perfectly right this quarter or next quarter, we're going to stay the course. So that's, those are some of the challenges and sort of things that we've been dealing with. And I'll give you one last one, which is, when you're in a period of uncertainty, a lot of times you want to be very conservative. And one of the things I did right when the pandemic hit was I stopped hiring. I did a hiring freeze because I didn't know what was going to happen, and I wanted to be conservative and make sure we had plenty of cash reserves. And that actually ended up being a fairly costly decision because, as anyone knows, it takes a lot of time to hire great talent. And when you stop, then your pipeline stops, and then it takes you quite a bit of time to catch up. And that was an example of, if I could go back, I would have said, wow, everyone's using video, triple down, Vimeo. And we ended up doing that eventually. And now as an independent public company, we're hiring very quickly. But those are the kinds of decisions in the moment that you make that you look back and you say, wow, when things are challenging and they're uncertain, there's a time to be conservative. There's also a time to be aggressive and to actually say this is an opportunity that we can take advantage of.
Vimeo's business is 75% self-serve, 25% sales-driven in the enterprise. How do you manage those two entities, and how do you prioritize them effectively?
Yeah, it's a billion-dollar question. I think one of the most exciting things about Vimeo's business is that we have this freemium funnel, meaning, ultimately, we don't have to go and fish in other ponds to find our enterprise customers. They're already on the platform, and they're using the products for free. And if we do it right, that our products can actually be our marketing. It can be the way that we find and surface enterprise customers. And actually, it's already happening today. Over 70% of our new enterprise customers start as free and self-serve users, and these are Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. So the way that we've kind of thought about it is, and what we used to do is we had the company split between self-serve and enterprise. And turns out that's not really the optimal way to do this, because if you really want to manage one funnel, you have to think of the user journey regardless of how they pay you. You just have to think about what kind of user are you serving. And so we've actually kind of reoriented how we operate internally. We focus on the customer segment. So, companies over a certain size or large organizations. And then our product teams and our marketing teams think about how to serve that customer throughout their journey, whether they're a free user, whether they're a self-serve customer paying us a couple $100s a year, or whether we're in a conversation with our sales force at a much larger contract value. And so far, it's still early, but what I'm finding is that, or sort of thinking of it as one central funnel and one journey, so far does seem to be really helping us take advantage of this funnel. And I believe that we have, the key to the enterprise is actually in that free user base. And this is why, again, we want to provide as much value and expose as many free users to video as possible, because we believe that ultimately that's going to be the gateway to the enterprise.
Maybe just drilling in on the enterprise business. Any tips or tricks that you're finding for others to learn from how to build that up? I think it's only a few years old. So what have you learned on the enterprise side, and effectively kind of what are you finding in terms of traction and excitement on that business right now?
Lots of lessons. But some of the things I'll say that, early days, it was really, do we have the right product? And can we orient our product to really serve the enterprise? And there were a whole set of features and capabilities, SLAs, security, user level analytics, all these things that we didn't have that we had to build for the enterprise. And then it was about, okay, well, how do you sell to the enterprise? And I think we did what every company does, which is we started with the sales team, and we built out a sales team, and who's great and have done incredible things. But now I see how those are just very small pieces of the pie. And actually, if I could go back, one of the things I would have done is invest much earlier on in customer success, in user activation, onboarding, in expansion. Have we really thought about, once we have a customer, yeah, it's great that we've increased our contract value by selling them more advanced capabilities, but how are we actually getting them to truly succeed with video? What is their KPI that they care about ultimately, and how are we going to grow that for them? And then how are we going to expand our relationship? And that seems obvious, but I think when it comes to actually operating as a company, there's a lot of investment you have to make in those types of areas. And it's very easy to say, okay, well, the demand is here. I've got the pipeline. Let me close the pipeline. Let me hire the sales people to do that, and kind of punt a little bit on some of these other things. But ultimately, we're in software. This is all about the relationship with the customer. It's all about lifetime value. And so that's probably one of the biggest lessons, is that I would say, like, make sure you put just as much effort, attention, focus, resources on once you get a customer, making them successful, getting them to do more and naturally expand with you. I think that's ultimately what the best-in-class SaaS companies do well.
You're pretty unique with 50% of your revenue outside North America. Many companies that we cover don't have that at your size. How did you get there? What have been some of the learnings being a very global story?
You know, the truth is most of our international growth has been organic. Classic, word of mouth. You know, we're a global platform. The need for video is global. Workforces and teams and companies are distributed and global. And so a lot of that traction came naturally. The one area where we've really, I think, started to drive it more intentionally has been in the enterprise, where, you know, we've picked certain regions, EMEA, APAC, now we're doing it in LATAM, where we put a very small sort of skunkworks team on the ground, boots on the ground. And we start small, but we really empower that team. Typically, the sort of leader is a salesperson, but they're also, in many ways, an entrepreneur. They think like a CEO. And their job is to be on the ground and not just figure out how to sell, but do we have product market fit? What are the nuances around what these users in this region need? How do we need to go to market differently? And what we found is that by putting the right leader in each of these regions early, really early, even before you might be comfortable being like, okay, I'm ready to, you know, build a team here, putting them there early allows you to get those learnings. Empowering them allows you to quickly kind of do the things you need to do to then scale. And we've been able to scale. You know, our EMEA team has grown quite significantly and is now a real contributor to our revenue. And we're doing the same thing in these other regions. And so, you know, looking back, I wish I had moved even faster in putting one or two really trusted people in these regions and seeing what happens. Because in every software and in every industry and use case is different. But what we're finding in video is the need is global, and there's not a ton of incremental investment you have to make in the product in order to get product market fit in these other regions. So I wish we had, you know, almost taken advantage of that even earlier.
One of the key things about the software industry is durability of growth, and we look at Salesforce.com still growing 20%, even at the size, albeit Mr. Benioff is doing a lot of acquisitions to help that 20%. But when you think about how big this opportunity is, and just walk us through kind of your view. I know you've given Wall Street a 30% plus goal, but how do you think about this opportunity set?
I mean, I think it's, you know, we think it's a $70 billion market, and ultimately the way I think of it is, if every business can use video, and that's going to help them get a higher click-through rate on their marketing, or sell more products, or have a more engaged and productive and informed workforce because they're able to share knowledge in a more compelling way and have that knowledge be accessible. If you can do that, then we should be able to unlock a substantial share of the software budget that exists at these companies. And not even the software budget, the marketing budget. And we have a teeny tiny sliver of that today. The average contract value for enterprise for Vimeo today is around $20,000. That's really small if you think about, imagine every marketing, you know, message you put out there has video. Imagine your sales teams reaching out to their prospects instead of on a cold email using video. Imagine every training you do is now with video instead of having to fly someone and do a one-off event, and, you know, it's all recorded and transcribed and easily accessible. You know, you can see all these different touch points. And we've seen this with meetings. I mean, our worlds have been completely changed by video conferencing and Zoom. That's just meetings. Meetings is one part of how we communicate in business. And so every other touch point, I believe, can be video first, should be video first. And so, you know, that's really the opportunity. And we are very early in that journey. And I will say it's not just because we have to put the products in the hands of companies and employees have to use it. The products themselves are still very early. When we look at our roadmap over the next few years, there are so many things, experiences and capabilities with video that none of us are thinking about today that are interesting. I'll give you an example. Like everyone and their mother is doing webinars now, right? Is anyone actually enjoy the webinar experience? Is anyone actually like, oh, that's really fun and engaging? Why shouldn't it be, right? We're all used to consuming, Netflix quality content at home. That's what we expect. And so there's whole areas of how we're interacting with video today that can be so much better. And so I think ultimately, like the market is huge, but there's quite a lot of innovation left and quite a lot of building to still do to really make it amazing for people, and then to also make it so easy and simple that we all actually use it. And so I think of this market in decades, not years, not quarters, not months, not days. And we're going to take a very long-term view in how we go after it.
It's good to be out with everyone. Everyone asks kind of what this looks like post-pandemic. We were all locked in and we were consuming tons of video. We couldn't really do anything, and now we're traveling. My daughter's asking me to go to Target now. She doesn't want to buy an Amazon. What does this look like, for you guys post the end of this tough period that we've all gone through?
I never thought of video as an or. I thought of it as an and, as a complement to in-person experiences. And I'm of the belief, I don't think the world is ever going to go back to where we were. I don't think it's going to look like it has in the pandemic. I think it'll be a hybrid. And I ultimately think that video is a really great complement to that. I'll give you an example. I can't imagine, even if I have, my teams back in offices, I can't imagine hosting a town hall and saying, hey, if you weren't in today, or you were sick, or you had to go pick your kid up from school, you're going to miss it. In what world are we going to ever sort of settle for that? No, it's going to be live streamed, and it's going to be recorded, and it's going to be transcribed, and I should be able to go back, and anyone in my team should be able to go check, oh, I think there was a date that was shared about the next, big social event. Let me search for it, and it should pop up exactly that moment in the video. I mean, these are things that just human behavior has changed, and so that's not going to change. I think about, again, the training as a use case we're seeing so much of recently. But you have companies who literally used to have to fly all these people out to meet with each store to train them on the new product line. And that was expensive. And then if you missed the meeting, again, like you didn't get the training, and then you have to come back, and then you have to go do it again every quarter. The idea of doing that in video and then having it live on forever, it's more effective. It saves you money. It helps you achieve your business goals. So I think ultimately there's plenty of ways that video is going to increase the KPIs that businesses care about to be successful. And in all of those ways, it will endure. It will not go away. It won't be a fad. And I mean, anyone who has like a teenager right now is seeing how video is being used in our personal lives, and it's taking over. And it just doesn't make sense that it's not going to permeate in our professional lives as well. We don't live in worlds that are totally compartmentalized. So that's the bet.
Last question. The next 5 to 10 years for Vimeo, give us the 40,000-foot landscape of what you see from the cockpit.
Yeah. Well, I think if platforms like Vimeo do our jobs, and we create products and tools that make professional quality video far easier for every employee, I think the future is you have 1 billion knowledge workers in the world, 1 billion plus knowledge workers in the world. Every single one of them is able to create video content to communicate with their customers and with their colleagues. They're able to do it on their phones, on their desktops. AI will be used to dramatically kind of ease the production process. It will exist for recorded video as well as live content. And then I think what's really exciting is all of that content gets really sort of used, and instead of being fleeting, it becomes permanent within a company as like a system of record that, we launched a video library product so that all of your video content can be shared in one place. And I just think what that can ultimately do for businesses is help you be more productive, help you, diversify your workforce. You can hire many different kinds of people. You don't have to be sort of constrained by time zones and place. And I think it's going to open up like a whole different way to work better. So that's, I think, ultimately the hope is that every employee in the world's a content creator, and every single one of us is able to work more productively because we're able to harness the power of this medium and this technology. And I think Vimeo is super committed to being there and to driving that. But I also think there are others in the space who are innovating. And and when you're early in a market, innovation and competition is good, right? It's good. It forces you to be disciplined. It forces you to provide more value to the users. And so I think it's a really early, exciting time for the industry. And I'm very excited to play a role in it.
Thanks, Anjali, for joining. Thanks, everyone, for being part of the session.